Welcome to another episode of What Are You Even Talking About? I'm your host, the Nomothete. Today's guest is Barron. She is a homeopath, a naturopath, and a nutritionist, and is passionate about helping to support women who have been through trauma. Welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark.
So we like to start every episode with a question from the last guest. They get to pick any question they want, and they can ask the next guest without knowing who the next guest is. So your question was, what helps you get up in the morning?
Wow. Okay. That's deep. Or, well, I guess it could be deep, couldn't it? You can make it as you want. What helps me get up in the morning? If I take that question to mean what inspires me to get up in the morning, there's so many things that inspire me to get up in the morning. My kids, my work that I do, I have a lot to work towards. So I actually quite like waking up in the morning and thinking to myself, what have I got on today? So yeah, I would say really most of my days I'm happy to get up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Most people don't like to get up in the morning, especially having to deal with all the stuff they do. So that's an amazing answer.
Thank you.
Let's start the questioning with, what is a homeopath and a naturopath? What do they do?
Yeah, so naturopathy is kind of, the way I see it, is like the umbrella term for a whole lot of different modalities. So you can put nutrition under naturopathy, you can put herbal medicine, you can put all of the essence type medicines, like the Australian bush flowers, the bark flowers, all of those. And homeopathy is also considered a modality under the umbrella of naturopathy. But homeopathy is quite different to herbal medicine. It is what you would call an oral modality. So it's stuff that you take. But the difference between homeopathy and herbal medicine, I suppose you'd say, is that with homeopathy, we see the immune system not just on the physical level, but on the emotional, mental levels as well. And that's why I love it so much, because it goes deeper. And we use substances that are not just herbal, but we use also substances made from minerals and animals, and also more recently made from certain drugs to help detox the body from certain drugs, for example, and other man-made substances.
Cool. But I've heard the term before, but I've never talked to anybody who does it. So it's very new to me. I want to know more about it, because I believe in having medicines that are not just man-made. Like, there's so much in nature that can help us and cure us that we shouldn't have to rely on man-made medicines so much. How do you determine the appropriate remedy and dosage for a patient?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that I still struggle with after 20 years of working in homeopathy. So with homeopathy, basically each substance comes with what we call a symptom picture. And you can imagine if you were looking at, say, Leo as a star sign, it comes with a profile of particular characteristics that you would normally associate with a Leo. So if you were to apply that with a homeopathic substance, it's kind of the same, but it comes with a whole bunch of not only kind of emotional characteristics, but also physical, mental beliefs as well. So it's actually very detailed, each kind of symptom picture that you would get with each remedy. And what we do is, when a person comes in with their story and with their symptoms, with a bit of luck, we're able to match a particular homeopathic remedy with that set of characteristics to that person. So it's based on a like cures like philosophy. And what that does is it stimulates the immune system in a really particular way, which what I've seen in my 20 years, and not only in my clients, but in myself, is that it unlocks something. It kind of acts, I suppose, as a catalyst to point the immune system into, first of all, recognizing that this whole situation's going on in a more heightened way and working on it. So it stimulates the body's own immune system, I suppose. And the remedies, there's not a physical substance in there. So it's made in a particular way where we potentize things. So we take the original substance and we apply this kind of homeopathic process to it, and the resulting remedy has no physical substance left in there, which means we can use toxins, we can use all kinds of things that you would never take in the physical sort of way. And that also means that it attracts a lot of negativity from mainstream science, but there's a lot of research out there these days to show that there are actually subatomic particles present in the remedies. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
Go through it. Like, what if I was a patient? What kind of information would I need to give you in order for you to help me?
Okay, yep. I would ask you, first of all, where do you want to start? What kind of issue that's bothering you the most? Let's say I run a student clinic. So the last thing that somebody came in for, what was it? I mean, in a way, it doesn't really matter. Let's pretend that it's hay fever.
I was going to say, if you want to use me as I'll tell you what, let's say I'm extremely anxious. I'm extremely anxious all the time. And it is getting to the point where it's debilitating. Now I have mental illness that I was diagnosed with when I was 13. And, it plays a big part of my life, is schizoaffective disorder. So how would we go about trying to stop some of the anxiety that I have?
Okay. I'm happy to do that. The only thing is usually it takes 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get into everything. But we could kind of look at it from the homeopathic questioning point of view, but it gets really personal really quickly, especially when it's on the emotional level. So you're presenting with, let's just at the moment call it anxiety with the extra complications of everything else.
Okay.
So you know how everybody, when they get a cold, they get it in a different way?
Yeah.
So some people might get, like, I don't know, watery eyes and stinging sinuses and all the rest of it, and other people might get a cough or whatever. So for you, with your anxiety, and this is why it gets so personal, what kind of triggers do you have and what kind of sensations do you feel in your body with that?
Usually I get a tightness in my, like, not in my chest, but under my chest. And it's like right above the stomach, basically. And it'll feel like I'm having a heart attack, except it's not at the heart, it's below it.
So what kind of symptoms, or what's the sensation? And this is where homeopathy gets right into the sensation that you're feeling in your body right at that time. What's it like?
I think it's mostly pressure. Like, it just feels like an intense pressure, like something pressing down on my chest in that area. It's
like
really
pressing
weird.
Down side? Like there's a pressure on
From
the outside?
from the outside, it's like it's pushing in like this. Like it goes in and like presses down. And the way I deal with it is I just press down on that area, because it feels like it's moving upward. And so I press down on it. I guess in my mind, it makes me feel like I'm pushing it back down. And it'll keep going for a little bit. But after I don't think about it or I get something to do, it doesn't bother me. And it just happens at random times throughout the day. And I don't know what to do about it. Like, I take medicines and none of that seems to be helping it. And I don't know what else to do about it, but it's annoying, to say the least.
It would be. Yeah. So can I ask, if you don't push on it, can you run me through the process of what you feel will happen if you
I go into a panic attack. I go into a panic attack.
Okay. And what does that look like? I mean, you don't have to answer this, but this is
Oh,
just
no,
an
I'm an
example.
open book. I'm an open book. I love these types of things.
Tell me what happens in your mind, in your beliefs.
My chest gets tight. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I'm panicking on the inside, but you would never know it looking at me.
Yes.
I don't let it doesn't show outwardly, but it's in my head, and I know it's in my head, and I still can't stop it. Like, I go through it multiple times throughout the day, and people start to watch me do it, and they'll be like, "Why are you pressing on your chest?" Like, and I'm like, I just something I do. It's a quirk, and I have to always explain it, which makes it even worse. And I'll just feel like I have to do something about it. I can't just leave it alone, even though I know it's in my head and there's nothing wrong. Like, it's so weird, but it only happens at certain times throughout the day. And it's like, if I get real busy, or if I get to the point of, I know there's things I need to do and I'm like putting them off, like, it'll start. Or if, like, right before I do anything that I want to do in the day, like if I have work to do for the podcast, or if I'm doing class work, like, it'll start right before I do any of that, which will keep me from doing that.
So it's an anticipation thing.
Yes, I think so.
And this feeling, right? It's pressure from the outside, but there's also something inside, isn't there, that's rising, you said.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I want to use your
No,
words.
that's right. No, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So it starts in the just below your ribs, and then it rises up into your chest, this whatever it is internally.
Yes.
What's the path that it takes?
It literally goes up from bottom, like right above my stomach into my chest, but then it spreads and it goes to each side of where I press down at. Wherever I'm pressing, that's where it goes. And it's so weird. And I know in my head, because I'll tell myself, I'm like, the reason why you're feeling that pressure is because you're pressing down on there. And I'll be like, well, that can't be it, because it was doing that before I started touching it.
Right.
And for some reason I can tell myself that, and that'll help me get out of it.
So the need to press, what are you actually doing when you're pressing down on it?
Like, I'll just press like this, and like I'm holding something down, or I'm pushing something back out. Yeah.
So you're holding it in? You're holding it in?
Yeah, I'm trying to push it out of wherever it's going.
You're trying to push it out of wherever it's going because you were unsuccessful at pushing it back in. No, pushing it somewhere else.
Yes.
Pushing it somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay. Can you visualize what that is? What is that thing that you're pushing that's moving? I know this is weird. You tell me. I love weird. We absolutely love weird as homeopaths. So I want to know more about that. What is it, that thing that you're trying to push away? Can you visualize it? What does it look like?
I think it feels like air. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like I'm bloating. Like, I'm just bloating to a point. And I feel like if I press down on it, it'll push it out. Like, it'll press it back out of where it's headed. And it's always headed for my chest. And which makes me feel like, so I feel like I'm having a heart attack, even though I don't have heart problems. And I know that's how panic attacks feel. So I kind of figured that's what it was, because I don't have any heart problems. And everything health-wise, I'm okay. Yeah. So I know it's in my head. And it's annoying. It's so annoying and weird. And I can't really, when I try to explain to a doctor, they just look at me like I'm insane. And I'm like, but something's happening. I'm like, it feels like there's air being pressed and making me bloated. And I can't stop it.
Well, my inner homeopath at the moment is going, woo-hoo-hoo, and getting really excited. Because what you're describing is the family of the gases.
Okay.
in homeopathy. So I've decided that I'm narrowing down what I might give you to one of the gases. And it depends, like I don't know the gases super well because they're a little bit out there, but there's a couple that I do know well.
Okay.
But I would need to know more about, that panic attack. And yes, there's a heart attack, but for you, what is the sensation of a heart attack, if you know what I mean?
For me, it's just a lot of pressure. Like, I just feel like there's an immense amount of pressure being put on my chest, and it makes it difficult to breathe. And
Yes.
it's not so much the heart, really, it's just the chest in general. I just consider it a heart attack, but there's no pain to the heart. Like, there's no actual pain there. It's just a lot of pressure. And
And sorry, you go.
oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
What might happen if the process is left unchecked? What are you most scared of happening?
My heart stopping.
Your heart stopping. So it's not that you'll explode. It's more that the pressure gets so much that it
Just makes my heart give out. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess, exploding would be a term I would use to, um, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, it's just, I feel like it would just stop, or it would
would
just
just
get to a point where it would just get too big and then just compress and stop. I think
yeah.
the feeling mostly is I'm worried that something's going to happen to my heart, even though I don't
Yes.
really know what it is.
Yes. Okay, I've got a weird question to ask you. Homeopathy is
Okay.
full of weird questions.
Okay.
We allowed to swear on this show?
Yes. Okay.
Do you ever get, actually, I don't have to. Do you ever get the nervous poo?
No, well, sometimes. It's very
Like,
rare.
but before an event,
Yeah.
especially like maybe earlier when maybe you were younger or when there's a big event going on.
Yes. I used to have like really bad situations with that area. Like, in the middle of the night, I would just have to go to the bathroom and it would just be anxious and I would be in there for hours. And anytime I would get nervous, like I had ulcers real bad when I was young. Uh, Anything that had to deal with gastrointestinal stuff, I usually had. Like, I had irritable bowel, I had ulcers, anything that was dealing with my stomach stressed me out. And I was
Yep.
very stressed as a child.
You were
And
very
in my younger years, I was very stressed out all the time and nervous and anxious and all of that.
Yep.
And it would literally just bother my stomach all the time. So I was always in the bathroom.
And do you what kind of fears do you have or did you have as a kid? What freaks
I had, well, I had my childhood home was sometimes violent until I moved in with my grandmother.
you?
And so I always had to worry about like my parents or my stepfather and my mom fighting until we got out of that situation. But then it was a lot of pressure in my grandmother's because we were very, very religious.
Yeah.
And it was to a point where everything we did, we were going to hell for. No matter what it was, no matter how good it was, we were going to hell. And that's just how everything was. So there was a lot of pressure to succeed and a lot of pressure to do everything the right way or in God's way. And, you can't please God. Like, because everything you do is wrong. And so
Yes.
I was always so anxious, and it put a lot of pressure on me
Do
to
you hear your
be,
words?
huh?
Do you hear your words? Pressure, pressure, pressure,
Yeah,
pressure, pressure,
yeah.
pressure,
So much pressure.
pressure, pressure, pressure.
Yep. Makes sense. It makes sense. Oh,
Sorry, I didn't
but
mean
yes.
to interrupt.
No. It makes sense now that you say that. I'm like, oh, that's where that comes from then. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Um, okay, so there's anticipation anxiety, and is that kind of the biggest anxiety for you, but leading up to something?
I'm not sure. Like I've never had that many problems in life. And I was, a good kid and I like went to school and everything. So I was never like a problem, or I never felt like I felt like my family always thought I needed to do better. And I never knew what better was. Like I never could tell you what better meant because I was
Yes.
doing everything I could to be the best kid I had to be. So, but I always felt like I could do better. And that's something that has followed me into my adulthood. I always think I have to do more and I have to do better.
Yeah. Okay. Just from looking at it from a homeopathic point of view, with your upbringing, I can see the possibility, and because it's always a possibility, I'm not standing here like the expert going, well, it's not like that. Yeah. Here's what I'm seeing, and feel free if it doesn't resonate to say no. But what I'm seeing is with that that anxiety, you grew up in a situation where there was danger, I suppose. So to cut this short, because we could go on and on, and get to the real heart of this, but what I see right now is that as a child, there was a lot of anticipation around, here's a series of events. Is this going to result in violence or in a dangerous situation? So possibly you got really good at kind of anticipating or reading into events in the hopes that maybe you could have circumvented some of that violence and maybe taking it on yourself so that you behaved in a certain, or tried to behave in a certain way that would minimize, which I know we all do when we're faced with like an unsafe situation. But from the point of view of this particular remedy that I'm thinking of, there's like, it's all anticipation in the hope of being able to read events enough to stop the situation. But usually there's this feeling of powerlessness because the situation's happening and nothing you do will make a difference. So you can anticipate it and see it evolve, but you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. I definitely agree with that.
And then there's a pattern, like, all of our childhood events end up patterning our subconscious into this kind of conditioning. So then we take that and we apply that to everyday life.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with that. And as much as I know that, like, my life has gotten so much better as an adult, but I still hold on to that, I guess, like, through therapy and doing more in my life, getting better, doing all the things I needed to achieve things I wanted to. Like, I had to get over always trying to people please, because that was a problem too. Like, there was a lot of people pleasing in my life. And when I decided I wasn't going to people please anymore, people got mad and I didn't know what to do because, I wasn't the person that said no. I was the person that did everything I was asked of. And that became my life, and I knew it had to change. So I made that change, and then I had to deal with the consequences of that change because I was a person who did so much for people. And I've gotten so much happier now that I will say no. And I will literally, tell people I just can't do it. And that helps me facilitate a better life for myself. But it's still, the anxiousness is still there, I guess. And like, it's just something I deal with.
I would be really careful of that wording. If you tell people I can't do it, it's kind of telling yourself I can't do it.
True. I've been working on that. A lot of people have told me that because I have a very negative speech, which I'm working on. I say a lot of things that come off negative and I don't mean them to. I'm just so used to talking that way, it just comes out naturally. So I've been working on like telling myself, Like how I say things matter. And I have to do a lot better at that because it's the power in words. And we literally have to say positive things for positive things to happen because we can limit ourselves by what we say. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Aren't we all?
Yes, so much so. And I mean, it's the conditioning that we have, from growing up. Like
Yeah.
it takes a toll on us and we don't realize it. It's just because we hear it so much and we do so much that it just becomes natural. And that's what happened in my case.
Yeah. And it's all about that subconscious patterning. So the remedy that I would consider giving you, there's two different ones. So the first one is homeopathic nitrogen.
Okay.
And when you think about nitrogen, it's one of the most abundant minerals or gases in the that we're breathing. Like we actually breathe more nitrogen than we breathe oxygen. And
wow.
gases have this ability to expand.
Okay.
So there's this kind of okay, let's see if this resonates with you. There's this thing in the symptom picture of nitrogen where there's this dilemma, I suppose you'd call it, between constriction and pressure and freedom. So it's almost like I would call it, one of my clients called it spiritual agoraphobia.
Okay.
Where it's almost like we put ourselves under that constrictive pressure because we're trying to hold ourselves in. This is like the picture of the gases in general. There's this need to hold yourself in so that you don't fritter away into nothing, but getting the balance between holding a shape, I suppose, and frittering away is really difficult, or exploding, depending on how flammable you are as a gas. So what most nitrogen people do is that they're so scared of frittering away that they put themselves under too much pressure. And when you look at nitrogen gas in a breathing apparatus, and actually we had a nitrogen client in our student clinic once. She was a diver, and she also used to work in a dentist's surgery, and the dentist surgery, nitrous oxide, happy gas.
Yeah.
And then with the tanks, most of it's nitrogen.
Wow. I bet she felt a lot of pressure.
And it was all about pressure, like exactly what you were talking about. It was in a slightly different way. But what she was talking about was that she just wanted to alter the valve so she could leak off all the pressure. But she didn't want to do that because it was too scary.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I used to have dreams where I would start to walk and I would start to float. And I would start to float and then I couldn't like it would take me longer and longer to get back to the ground. And until at one point where I just wouldn't go back down to the ground, I'd fly out. And I feel like that's kind of what it feels like for me. I feel like if I release, I guess, then I won't come back down.
Yes. Yes.
Never said that out loud.
And it's really cool, homeopathy, because you can understand parts of yourself, or we can understand parts of ourselves without having to go into all the heavy shit.
Yeah.
And you can't, I mean, people do, they come in and they tell me all kinds of stuff and they come out and go, wow, I feel like I've just been to a psychologist or something. So, I mean, but it's awesome, but it's kind of from a different perspective. It's not, I think psychology these days, modern psychology, has a long way to go because it focuses on the really negative stuff and what are your problems. And I think homeopathy does that to some degree too. You kind of have to. I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on your problems or anything like that, but if we go round and round and round in our problems for too long and too much, it almost makes a groove like in a record where it imprints on us even more. So, and I've had lots of trauma in my life. I understand that. I still do that. I still catch myself telling myself the same stories or going to whatever, because I've had lots of support and therapy and stuff, and saying the same story, and it brings up all the same stuff. And it's almost like you're creating a groove for yourself. So the more we can focus on it from, okay, well, how is it affecting you today? What's happening for you today? And it's not even my trauma or da 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 and all that past. It's how am I feeling today?
Yeah, definitely. I studied solution focused brief therapy, and it's very positive. Like it literally, it's all about solution focus. And so, you know, you ask people, what do you want to achieve? Or
Yeah.
what are the things that you can see yourself doing? It's all about positive work instead of,
Yeah.
you know, relating on your trauma and pain and going back to that and then having to relive it in your mind. And
Yes.
it helped me so much because lots of trauma. And I just got tired of always having to talk about it because it would make me relive it. Like, and I see what you're saying, because how it would, you know, make that groove, because you're literally having to rehash this all the time. So it becomes a normal part of your life every day again. And it's like the last thing you really want it to do is become a fixture in your life. You just want to get rid of it. And it, you know, it's hard to do in modern therapy. I'm going to school right now for psychology, and it's always rehashing the pain. And it's like, but you know, not all the time is pain. Like there's good parts to your life, and you know, it needs to be talked about more, because when you talk about positivity, it will literally make you positive in that moment. So like I tell one of my clients, what makes you happy? Like, tell me the things that make you happy. And she'll be stressed all the way out. And I'm just tell me some of the things that make you happy. And she'll start going through the list and realize in the moment when she was telling me the list, she wasn't thinking about any pain. She was just thinking about happy things. And it literally changed her whole outlook. I feel like that's something we all need to do, because there's so much pain in the world, like that everyone's going through something. And we have to change the way we look at things. We have to change the way we do things, because it takes a toll on people, and which causes more mental illness. It causes more problems with our mental health.
It can. And I think that thing about moving towards something rather than fighting something off is because, you know, in our society, we're brought up to fight off stuff, you know, whether it's external, you know, like the society's influence or the government or whatever, or internal, you know, like you were talking about with those inner sensations. It's this battle almost, you're fighting it. But we've never grown up knowing subconsciously what it's like to move along with something and observe it and understand, you know, with the intention to understand it and allow it to pass out of our system, because it's happening whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
No matter how much we fight it.
Yeah. And the only way to get through it is to get over it. Like we have to move past it. And a lot of therapies and stuff nowadays just don't do that. They literally just keep you there. And it's like, this is the last thing I want to do. I used to go to therapy all the time. And I would dread going, because I was like, I know what I'm gonna have to talk about. And it's just, I'm so tired talking about it, because it makes it so much realer in my life. I'm like, it's just no good. It's like you just want to get rid of it. So we definitely need to take a new approach.
Yeah, I think with homeopathy, it allows us to accept, you know, that word acceptance really annoys me, because it's just a word, and you can go, oh, well, okay, well, I intend to accept everything about myself. Yeah, that's nice. Nothing happens. But I think if we have a structured kind of journey to be able to see that from a different perspective in ourselves. Like, you know, homeopathy is just one of those. There's lots of different ones, but homeopathy allows us like a structure to be able to observe ourselves in a way that's not from that classically kind of judgmental societal way, which I think psychology is still kind of stuck in. Oh, well, you've got delusional characteristics and you've got this and you've got that and whatever. With homeopathy, in a way, everything's a delusion.
Nice.
But it's a delusion in homeopathy isn't, it's not coming from that judgmental kind of way. It's acknowledging that everybody's delusional in their own way and everybody has their little self-beliefs. So that's, and it's from like the 1800s. So it's been around for over 200 years. So everybody has their various kind of filters that they experience the world in. And that's in homeopathy what we call a delusion.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we really do all have our things, and no matter what we do, they're going to be there. Yeah. So like we literally, I mean, and everything has a negative connotation nowadays. Like everything that, you know, that's said to be healing is always coming from a place of judgment. Like once you tell somebody you have like a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, they look at you different. And it's like, but you don't know what that means. You just have the thought process of what you think it means in your own head from what you've seen in media or read in books. And it's like, but I'm not a textbook case of anything, because no one's a textbook case of anything. So you can't just go by what you read or what you see on movies and stuff, because that's not really the depiction of the real thing. And it just becomes hard to deal with things because everyone has this preconceived notion from their own perception. And it's like, no, I can explain it to you if you would like, or you can just believe what you're going to believe and then treat me different because of that. And it's something we really need to work on so much.
Yeah, I agree. And as a homeopath, I would say, how do you experience that? What's your experience of that? Because everybody experiences it different. Everybody's got different things that come up for them, no matter what it is. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is.
It really is that way. Okay.
Did you also know with schizophrenic disorder, there's an enormous nutritional link as well to various. No. Right. Okay. So what coming from now the nutritional point of view, I guess, I remember reading this study. There's an enormous percentage of people with schizophrenia who have genetic nutritional difficulties, you know, with certain enzymes activating certain vitamins, for example, or certain genetic issues that stop the uptake of zinc and magnesium.
I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that.
Have a look into that.
I know my sister, she doesn't have it, but she has an issue with her iron. Like, and it's in my family, there's the iron deficiency with some, like my cousin, my sister has it. And I need to look in that for myself because I'm like, what if I could be having that too? So that's definitely something I need to look into, because that could be one of the causes.
So check out pyrrole. Have you ever heard of pyrrole?
No.
It's so pyrrole is this disorder where they have found a few genetic changes associated with it, but pyrrole is this thing where, you know, with our red blood cells, they recycle every 120 or so days.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of processes in order to like recycle the substances within the red blood cell. Okay. So the iron goes somewhere, you know, all the other stuff goes somewhere else. So there's this one substance called HPL, and it's got this name that's 1 million miles long. So I'm not even going to hydroxyhempyrrole and blah, blah, blah. And porphyrin kind of arms within the hemoglobin molecule that hold the oxygen in place, right? And arms need a particular set of processes to break them down. And if they're not broken down, these pyrrole compounds build up in the body, and they're actually a nerve toxin.
Wow.
So this nerve toxin, the pyrrole compounds, right, they block the uptake of zinc, or the metabolism of zinc, magnesium, B6, biotin, and a whole bunch of other nutrients. And what that does, first of all, is give you things like severe zinc deficiency, which causes copper to rise. And guess what copper is? It's a nerve irritant. So now you've got two nerve irritants, and you've got a zinc deficiency, and you need zinc and magnesium to actually function in your nervous system properly. So that leaves people with pyrrole feeling really wired, on edge, anxious, unease, unable to sleep, prone often to like anger and not being able to control emotions properly, and on it goes. And this is a physical biochemical process. It's not because that person's naughty or whatever, and that they're physically unable to control, you know, to mentally to have that nervous system control and regulation. And it's often brought about and switched on after trauma.
Wow. That sounds like exactly what my issue is. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Huh.
And
I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, look into that. It's not necessarily as simple as just going, oh, well, okay, I'm just going to take zinc, B6 and magnesium. That's part of it. But it's also likely that a whole bunch of other minerals are missing or low, because if you've got low zinc, then you've got low stomach acid, and your digestive processes won't be working so well, and you won't be absorbing so well. So it kind of, it ricochets off into all these different parts of the body and well, everything really.
It's snowball effects into other stuff.
The snowball effect.
Wow.
Absolutely. And, you know, usually when we're stressed, here's another little nutritional thing. Usually when we're stressed, we have trouble holding on to our magnesium. So we actually pee out our magnesium right when we need it the most, which is really ironic. That's not really a very good, it's a bit of a design flaw. Anyway, so high dose magnesium is absolutely vital in any mental illness, full stop.
Wow. I'm definitely going to go get me some magnesium.
And not only that, if you're on medication, if a person's on medication, it's really important to look up what nutrients are depleted as a result of that medication, because there's a lot of medications that deplete, say, folate, and folate's really important for a whole bunch of stuff to do with mental health.
This is a side of mental health I've never even thought about. Like when I do my work with looking into that, I never think about that much into it. I always think about what's the issue causing the illness, but not so much from a nutrient standpoint, even though that would make more sense of why people have the problem with the mental illnesses, because they are lacking in nutrients in their body.
That's right. So it starts with that stress experience, right? Everything I think that goes wrong with the body, the first thing that causes the problems are the stress hormones that are there constantly, day in, day out. So this is why I love the homeopathy, because it deals with kind of, I guess, the root of the problem. In nutrition, we are dealing with the root in a way that we're looking at the underlying bodily processes that are really important to support. But that's coming from that kind of, I guess, upper spiritual, emotional, experiential level. And then that's having an effect on the body. But rather than, you know, the poor body, it's got to cope with all this stress, and then it's got to try and uphold all its biochemical processes without the right nutrients. And what happens also during trauma or after trauma is that our methylation goes haywire. And methylation, there's a lot of research on methylation now. Methylation is like a little bit of a switch, you know, you turn the light switch on and off. Yeah. That's what happens to our genes, right? So there needs to be healthy methylation in order to switch certain genes on and off. So there are some genes that we really want switched off. Say, you know, tumor growth genes that should only be on when we're growing or when we're healing from, you know, repairing something. If methylation's not working properly and not suppressing those genes, they get switched on, like really crappy, shitty genes that are great when it's in context, in the right context, but they're really not great when it's not the right context. So methylation, in order to support healthy methylation, we need really good minerals, and we also need good vitamin B, you know, not just the shitty, say, folic acid, which the bread's full of. So if we've got methylation issues and we're eating flour in bread, that's full of folic acid, and it's going to cause us all kinds of extra problems that we have to mop up in our system. So it just goes on and on. I could go on and on about, yeah.
And that would cause weight gain and stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, that's also because of our liver, and because cortisol and all the stress hormones affect our thyroid, because it slows it down. It puts us into famine mode because our body is going, oh, we're in stress. Let's go into famine mode, slow things down a bit so we don't starve.
Huh. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into this because I really need to do more. I need to get more information on this because like that, it literally, you've helped me just thinking about some of the stuff I've gone through, like other options, because when I go to the doctor about it, I can never explain to them exactly what's going on to a point where they look into it more. Like I can always tell them something is wrong, but I don't know what. Like I told one of my doctors that I needed a scan of my brain, and she refused. Like she utterly refused to give me the referral. And I was like, but I really needed it. I was like, I had headaches as a child, and like my brother had brain surgery because he had a tumor. So I needed to find out if this was hereditary, you know, something was wrong. And like she dropped me as a patient when she finally gave me the referral, because I told her, I was like, you're not looking out for my best interest if you cannot give me this referral. And she just didn't want to give it to me. So she finally gave it to me and then dropped me as a patient. So I got the scan back, and the scan said everything was fine, but no one actually explained the brain scan to me, and I never got to see it like on like a paper. Like I never got to see, you know, what the x-ray looked like or the CT scan. And so it bothered me because I'm like, something is up. Like there's something going on in my body. And if it's not in the brain, it's somewhere. And homeopathy would make me believe like that it could be a number of things, that I'm just not getting the right nutrients and stuff. And that's also, I had a theory that a lot of addicts are, you know, missing nutrients and something. That's why they are, you know, they move toward whatever drug they choose or whatever addiction they have, is because they lack the nutrients from that thing. So I feel like that could be a really good place to look at. It makes sense.
Have you seen that? It's called the Rat Park video. I don't know if you've ever come across The Wisdom of Trauma, Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yes.
I believe they might have mentioned it in that, but it's this video on YouTube. You can just like Google it. And the Rat Park experiment was where they had rats just in cages without any fun stuff for them, and they would just sit in a cage, and they'd put water in one little dispenser and heroin next to it. And so, of course, the rats basically killed themselves via heroin overdose. But then they had the thought that humans are so fucking cruel, aren't they? Anyway, they had the thought to put another lot of rats all together rather than just alone in this really fun environment with, you know, mazes and stimulating stuff and bits of nature and all the good stuff. And they had a bit of a whole kind of community going. And maybe the odd rat here and there would have a little go at the heroin, but none of them, not one rat, ended up overdosing.
Because they have things to do. There's like the option of, most people who have addictions, and I know this from personal experience, when you have the right things in your life, you use less. Like when you're happy, when things are going right in your life and all the good is happening, you use less. And it's been scientifically proven, like we're talking about. Like you can literally stop doing all of that if like you have your needs met. And that's a big thing about, why a lot of addicts use, is because their needs aren't being met. Like some of them have problems with housing, some people have problems financially, some people have problems with their families, and all of these things build up into the only thing you want is an escape. And so you do whatever you can to escape that, and it's usually drugs. And
and I think also with trauma, you don't want to be in your body. Your body's a really crappy, shitty place to be. And I know also with the gases, right? This is in homeopathy, with the gases, they rise up, right? A lot of the gases are lighter than air. And helium as well. I don't know a lot about helium, but that might be another one to look at if you're floating like that in your dreams. But the gases rise up, they're light, right? So a lot of people would describe all of their essence, I suppose, that energetic part of themselves kind of stuck up here, and they can't actually sink into their bodies, and maybe a lot of them don't want to, because there's all these horrible sensations and horrible feelings trapped in the tissues, and a lot of what people kind of focus on these days is that nervous system regulation. If you're in your body and you come across a little bit of a dead spot, I suppose a lot of people call it, where it's a little bit numb, and then if you sit in that spot, something will come up, which is not very pleasant usually. And we have the choice. We can either sit with it and go through that shitty sensation until it passes, or we can hold it off by indulging in addiction. For me, I reckon without homeopathy, I've been in a meditation group for 25 years as well. So without those, and nutrition, without those three things, I reckon I would be drinking myself to death in a gutter somewhere.
I drank a lot too, and I did many other drugs, and it never satisfies. Like you just end up killing yourself. Like you end up killing yourself before you ever get the good feeling from it. Like, and I used to drink like a sailor. Like I drank every day, all day. And people knew when they taught me, they were like, Mark only drinks two things, and that's beer and water. And like, so I would literally was known for drinking, and drinking a lot. Like I could drink anybody under the table, but I was like, I'm killing my liver. Like I'm killing my body, and I'm not getting anywhere. I don't feel any better. And you usually don't. Yeah,
it's like the drugs don't work, they just make you worse. What's that song?
Yeah. Now you physically feel like you feel, mentally. And it's like, that's the last thing you want to do. So yeah, that all makes sense. That all makes so much sense.
And not only that, alcohol, and I don't know what the various party drugs or lifestyle drugs deplete from the system, but they will suck you dry of minerals and certain vitamins, because our detox systems, right, they're really nutrient hungry. So if we've got all that going on, if we take whatever or drink too much or whatever, it depletes, first of all, zinc. And if a person's got pyrrole, then zinc is the last thing they need to deplete themselves from. And that's also going to set up more sense of kind of that horrible uneasiness feeling, and then you'll want to drink more. So it's like a vicious cycle.
That's what I tell people. Everything snowballs. Like no matter if it's positive or negative, it snowball effects into other stuff. So like when you're doing positive things, it snowballs into more positivity. And when you're doing negative things, it just snowballs into more negativity. So we have to watch what we do for sure.
Yes, that's right. And actually, you just mentioned iron earlier. That just came back and pinged me. you know, and your sister, there's a thing with pyrrole where and this is only something that I've seen, I haven't been able to find any research in it, where pretty much everyone with pyrrole has either hemochromatosis or low iron, and there's this imbalance in iron. And when you've got low iron, it causes you to be restless, you know, like that ADHD. And it's not, iron is not the only thing that causes ADHD if it's low. I'm not saying that at all. But one nutrient that can increase restlessness is iron. And if we don't have enough iron in our system, our concentration suffers, we get all kinds of restless legs, and we have all kinds of other problems with, you know, the brain fog and low energy and all of that kind of thing. So that's another, I just wanted to slip that in there too.
I need to talk to my sister, because we need to sit down as a family and go through these things, because I think it's needed, especially with my generation and my sister's generation. Like, we were not the healthiest of kids. Like, we were both born early, and I was tiny. I was 3 pounds born, and and so I was supposed to be born in July, and I was born in April, and so I was really early, and I didn't have the right nutrients. Like, and just growing up, I was a sickly child, and my daughter is sickly too. Like, but she was born on time, and but she's still very sickly too. So I need to look into that for my kids as well. Like, this has been a very informative discussion. Thank you so much. We're running out of time, so I just want to say thank you for being on the show.
That flew.
It really did. It really did. I looked at the time and I was like, oh my God. Like, I had so many other questions to ask. Like, I have a page of questions that I just never asked, but you answered most of them without me asking them. So that's great. I would love to have you back on the show, though, because I feel like this is a topic that we need to talk more about. And you've blown my mind with so much stuff. I need to go research it, like, as soon as I get off this call. I do have one question for you, though, or 2 more questions for you. One is, how can my listeners get in touch with you if they need help? Because I feel like you could help them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, thank you. Well, obviously, I'm in Australia, Sydney. I do consult over Zoom, but the time difference can sometimes be a little bit of a tricky one. I can put my my links up. I work at the Harbour Homeopathic Clinic in Sydney. And yeah, I can do the links and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to put them in my description and stuff. So last question. What is the question you have for the next guest without knowing who the guest is?
I feel really evil. Hang on. And I just didn't even get the chance to think about that. Okay, so for the next guest, what is your take on the meaning of life?
Oh, they're going to be rough. And the funny thing is, my next guest is tomorrow. So I will literally be talking to them tomorrow. So I'll get that answer very quickly. It'll be fun. They're going to be like, oh, no.
I look forward to hearing what their answer is. Yeah,
I'll definitely send you the link for when I have it up. I'll make sure to get the next guest for you. So thank you for being on the show so much.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
I've learned so much. I like to end every episode with thank you for today, thank you for yesterday, and thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality, and at every end, there's a beginning. You guys take care. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Bye.
And that wraps up another thought-provoking episode of What Are You Even Talking About? We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the discussion we had today. Before we go, we want to extend a huge thank you to our amazing guest. Your insights and expertise truly enriched our conversation, and we're grateful for your contribution. And of course, a massive thank you to you, our incredible audience. Your engagement, questions, and feedback make this podcast what it is. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect. Thank you for today. Thank you for yesterday. Thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality, and at every end, there is a beginning. We love the journey we're on with each and every one of you. Keep those questions coming. Keep challenging the status quo, and keep exploring the uncharted territories of your mind. We can't wait to dive into another riveting conversation in our next episode. Until then, take care, stay curious, and keep asking, what are you even talking about? Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and connect with us on social media. We'll catch you in the next one. You guys take care.